Thanks, guys, and welcome. So for this one, I think we'll open it up for questions from the audience. If anybody says something and it sparks a question for any of you, just raise your hand. I'll acknowledge you. You can put your hand down. Somebody will bring you a mic. Just remember to please speak into the mic when you ask your question, all right? So let's get started with introductions, please. If you could just each kind of, and I'll start with you, Colton.
Sure.
Tell us about Prime Protocol. Tell us what you do and what interoperability means.
So Prime Protocol is the first natively cross-chain prime brokerage. What that means is we're doing cross-chain lending across a ton of different EVM chains that Axelar supports. And so this means that you'll be able to deposit your tokens on ETH, for example, take out a loan on Arbitrum, maybe take out a borrow on Avalanche, and then you can bridge those anywhere and maybe recollateralize the position on Moonbeam. And the cool thing about Prime Protocol is we're completely cross-margined. So all of your positions that you have on ETH count towards your global account. All the positions that you have on Arbitrum, Polygon, Avalanche, Moonbase, any other chain that we support, it's all one borrowing experience for DeFi. And so that's really what interoperability means for us, is abstracting away, having to basically have a separate account on each chain and have one global account that you use for all of DeFi.
I think it's really interesting. It's like people think of UX as like the things you click, right? The things you tap.
Right.
But this is like the UX. Imagine like if you had to, your banker couldn't handle, right? Your broker couldn't handle assets in different categories for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Different broker for each.
Yeah, it's like saying that for your Tesla stock you have to go get margin from Goldman Sachs, but for your JP Morgan stock, only JP Morgan's going to bank that. So you've got to basically use a ton of different banks, a ton of different lines of credit, and what that ends up doing is siloing all of your different positions. So you have higher liquidation risk. The UX is way worse, which is the topic of this panel.
Awesome. Thomas, please go ahead.
Yeah, Thomas, so I'm now with Cygni. Before that, I was like the co-founder of Ledger, so this little hardware wallet that you may have used in your life. So it started really as a Bitcoin wallet, then to like, let's say, multi-wallet, like with different silos that you were saying, like different assets in different chains, and with like the rise of like Tendermint, Cosmos, and Axelar, the ability to make a thing of all these assets and a model way that leads to like a lot of innovation, a lot of cool new products that are rising. And with Cygni now, it's a fund that is investing not just in blockchain and what we'll call like the future of trust. So combination of blockchain, AI, privacy, kind of building blocks to build like better, more trustworthy technology. And blockchain is obviously as a trust machine, like a big part of what we invest in. Interop be as well, and Axelar, we are big fans from the day one and investors in this ecosystem.
Excellent. Fig, go ahead, please. Tell us about Squid.
Thanks. Hey guys, my name's Fig. I'm one of the co-founders of Squid, and Squid is the cross-chain swap layer on Axelar, so it allows you to swap any token on one chain for any token on another chain in one click. And you can extend that as well. So if you want to buy an NFT in Matic on Polygon, if you have USDC on your wallet on Avalanche, you can still buy the NFT in one click. And we do all the optimal routing in the background. So we only use Axelar as our infrastructure layer, and Axelar does the cross-chain execution. Squid builds routes on top, and we find the optimal route through existing DEXs like Uniswap and Curve and a bunch of partners in the space.
Cool. All right. Well, let me kick this off with a question, and I guess I'll put it to you maybe first, Fig. I'm not going to say the F word, but a lot of centralized services have been the on-ramp for people coming in when there's moments of enthusiasm and kind of exuberance in our space. You see, centralized exchanges, centralized lenders, really kind of being the first place people often go. And I'm guilty of it myself. People say, "How should I get some crypto?" I say, "Well, go to Coinbase." Right?
Yeah.
So what advantages do those what are they doing that enables them to be those on-ramps? And what do we need to do differently?
Yeah, I was thinking back to when I first bought crypto, and I think for me it was the fees, actually. You can send money to Binance with no fee, or a lot of centralized exchanges, and then you can buy with very deep liquidity. So that was the first thing. Which we have a lot of catching up to do, and the DEX space is improving with concentrated liquidity, which we've got a bunch of integrations with. The we're looking also at direct integrations with fiat on-ramps as well, so we can maybe take a part of that that flow. But another thing is the integration. So you can do all that you need if you want to get crypto. They receive fiat money, they swap it to crypto. You can hold your crypto. They do the whole thing in one package. I think that integration is really important for UX and something which DeFi hasn't really worked out yet. Everything's extremely modular, and you can't do in a single interface yet.
Do you think that's even like possible? Can we think of doing that? Like fiat, for example, that seems like a daunting bar to pass, right? That's sort of, you already, what does DeFi even mean in that context, right?
Yeah, totally. I think what this could look like is if a wallet integrates both Squid and a fiat on-ramp, and we compose them together. And then even just in your wallet interface, you can send fiat to it, swap it into crypto in one click. Squid also takes a highly integrated approach where we combine all the DEXs into one application. So no matter what chain you're interacting with, it's still just one interface, and we can keep extending that to wherever the natural endpoint is.
Colton, how does that play in lending? Like, where do you feel like?
So I guess one example of something that we're pursuing is you can essentially have a credit card where you can spend from your Prime account. And so this will be an integration with basically an off-ramp provider. And what that'll allow is, let's say you have a ton of collateral, you don't want to exit any of those positions, but you want to go literally use this at a point of sale with a card in your Apple Wallet or a physical card. We would partner with the provider, and you'd be able to spend from your USDC balance on ETH, either from your deposit, or you could choose to borrow as you make that tap. And it's all backed by your existing positions. So I think there's definitely a lot of opportunities for using DeFi as the rails that you're building these consumer-facing apps for. And I think on the flip side, for deposits, ultimately, I think in 5 to 10 years, a lot of the people who are depositing into Prime won't know that they're depositing into Prime because they're using a consumer-facing app where they're telling them, here's the yield you can get. The retail user ultimately doesn't care about the chain that they're on as long as the app is only using secure chains. And so they deposit into the app. They're told, hey, you're going to get 4%, you're going to get 5% on your cash. And this is done by lending through a DeFi protocol. The user's like, great. And then the app routes all of that to Prime in the background. And then if the user wants to be able to take out a loan based on that position, short a token or do anything, Prime is what's going on in the background that the app is interacting with. And the user is interfacing with maybe a centralized counterparty that's doing the on and off ramp. So I think that there are going to be a lot of these kinds of applications that pick up traction. And we've already seen that happen. I think the big issue was a lot of these very prominent C5 platforms were blatant Ponzi's, like Celsius, where the user funds were not being deposited into a DeFi protocol, and they were being given that yield.
Right.
They were being used to gamble, and then they were being promised the yields that wasn't being generated by the actual DeFi protocol.
It's not that databases are bad, right? It's that humans do irresponsible things potentially.
Right.
Actually, Thomas, this is a great point maybe to kind of bring you in here because you've said you're investing in the future of trust, and I'm curious kind of to know more about how you think about that, and especially sort of how do you convey that trust in the user experience?
And coming back to the centralized exchange and why they got that much of traction, I guess it's also because like they solve a problem for people who want to get in crypto, and I guess that's like the main reason why they get like so much like top of the funnel in a way that like your journey into crypto, you generally start like by saying like, okay, this looks good for whatever reason, whether it be the tech, whether it be the speculative aspect, whether it be the art, the NFT, then you need to find a way to get in. And like the good centralized exchanges are a good way to kind of, start your journey and get an initial exposure. And then you start to understand like what it's about to kind of own these assets, that you potentially need to own your own keys, and then that you need to interact with a protocol directly. So your journey starts with like the centralized exchange, and people stay there because of lack of education or lack of understanding of what you can actually do afterwards. And I guess that's really a good thing around like the good sex, the good centralized exchange, to say that you can it can be safe. in some way. But yeah, you can like at least get in, and like it's your first start of the journey in the crypto world. So there are some like you cannot fully decentralize and make trustless like the kind of fiat on-ramp. But there's some ways like where you can minimize the time where the centralized exchange have like custody of your funds. Like the folks from Cato, there's like a bunch of different on-ramps, off-ramps that you can use that are still not as good in a way that there's still some fees, but at least you have like a balance between the fees you pay and the counterparty risk that you cannot have. So I guess that's really what made them like so big and prevalent. But as you got more education, as you got like more occasion of using like decentralized protocols, there are like better in some ways. Like it's better to use like like a decentralized exchange or like an aggregator than like an actual centralized exchange. So like when the product is actually better, or you can do stuff that you cannot do with centralized exchange, like people will naturally use it.
I mean, I guess that's the question I'm still trying to get at, right? How, like for most people, okay, I trust my bank, and even that's probably questionable, right? Like, there are many examples. Wells Fargo, for example, right? But whatever, I trust Wells Fargo, I trust Bank of America, I trust these names, right? Not to do things like Celsius did, right? But how do you let the user kind of understand, like, the user who doesn't necessarily understand things at the code level, who can't verify, right? How do you sort of convey that this isn't, hey, we won't mess around with your funds. This is, we can't mess around with your funds. What's the path you think for people to convey these benefits to the user, not just in a way that they're actually delivering the benefit, but in a way that the user understands the benefit?
Yeah, no, it's a tough one. It's a very big question, and I think it needs to be fairly like it will be slow. It will evolve like step by step, where you need to start trying with this protocol and start like with like a certain amount of funds that are locked in to make sure that that things are safe and that the user kind of understand what they are doing. So I think there's a lot around like education and like being thoughtful that again, like when you've got like some crazy yield and crazy promises, it's most likely that there's a problem somewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I actually think there's a pretty easy solution to this, and that's just that there are going to be third parties that pop up that can look on chain, and they're doing the developer work for you, and then they put up dashboards that are monitoring the contracts, and they can tell you, hey, the funds are actually there. Here's how much is in the contracts. We can see the code. We verified how it works. There's not some upgrade path for everything to be stolen from you. And I think that as the industry matures, we're going to see more and more of those services pop up, and users are going to be interested in using those to make sure that their funds are safe.
Who is the user who really like demands these days, you think, like instant settlement? I mean, other than like the utter degenerate crypto trader, like who is the user that really demands like instant finality, bearer asset, right? I mean, I think about like stuff like the nickel market ruction in, what was it, last year or the year before, right? Where the nickel market just busted apart in the UK. And I mean, they had to like halt the market, walk back trades, right? You had people on like one side of that trade who were very not happy about the money that they thought that they had earned that day, and then it turned out that they didn't. I don't know, like what if you think about like the user persona today, and maybe go back to you, Fig, on this as you're thinking about sort of Squid and the cross-chain users and the cross-chain swaps that you do. What's that persona look like? Can you describe those people? Who's using and why?
Yeah. Oh, what are the uses of crypto? That's a good question. We can build the infrastructure, but I don't know what it's useful for. I mean, the users today is sending money and swapping assets. I think that's one of the best proven use cases. But I've started to think of it as a future of e-commerce as well, that you're going to be able to accept payments in fiat or crypto, or the other way around, you can pay in fiat or crypto. So I think it could extend to any commerce really, as a form of payment, form of holding assets. Yeah, I think the
fiat pegged probably, right? Like a sort of a dollar pegged or some other fiat pegged.
No, well, yeah, you could use stable coins.
Yeah,
for sure. But any crypto that you're holding, you want to be able to use it without having to do all these steps to get through.
You got in because you were curious and you're interested. Now you want to be able to. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the oldest, I think, use case. It's like, hey, we can let you buy something on Amazon with this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think you have all the other use cases like NFTs and games and physical embodiments of, NFT embodiments of physical things, like real estate. But I think just getting the payments layer solid first is something, and then I think in terms of the trust of how people are going to start to adopt this is there's a proxy relationship where you trust the person below you. Like we might have the nerds start the degens, and then we have more formal institutional traders, and then we have like on top of that we have maybe retail facing, and then it keeps building up, and then hopefully that is all falling back down to a private key at the end of the day, and
and something verifiable.
Yeah.
Colton, on the more sort of risk-oriented side or finance-oriented side, what do you think about the users of a Prime protocol type of product?
Well, I think one of the huge benefits of DeFi is the fact that all of the risks are transparent, and you'll be able to know like what are the risk parameters, when am I getting liquidated. You're not getting some arbitrary capital call because somebody got scared. And I think this also, because you have to have consistent risk limits, it leads to higher collateralization ratios, which some people don't like. But ultimately, that's what caused the last blow up, was everybody got over-levered and got a bit too greedy. And so I think that the benefits of what Prime Protocol is offering is a way to make sure that your counterparty is somebody not only who you can trust, but who's taken appropriate levels of risk, so that if the liquidation needs to go through, you're going to recover all of the funds and you're going to get your deposit back.
Right.
And I think that's just DeFi in general, and why you haven't seen any big losses on any of the major lending protocols in DeFi was because the nature of it, at least with collateralized lending, forces you to be both over-collateralized and transparent, which wasn't happening with any of the centralized lenders, and almost all of them blew up. So I think that's a huge advantage of what we're doing.
Thomas, I'm curious about your perspective as an investor from your portfolio and the projects you're talking to. What are people thinking? How are people thinking about their users? Is it important for them to be thinking about their users? Maybe they should be focused more on the sort of core technology and the pipes, if you will.
Well, of course, you always need to think about your users, and in the case of blockchain, it's users that want to have certainty on what's going to happen, and transparency on what's going to happen, and transparency and the assurance that there's not somebody that is going to roll back something, and so you can build trust on the fact that it's all. It's all open, it's all auditable. People want to make the extra step of understanding how it works and or can rely on some trust of some other third parties that kind of use it and give more signals to build that trust. And as far as so for the users, really anybody who want to have this certainty that the settlement is going to happen, and you're not going to have an outside party that is going to say, okay, I'm going to make a margin call, I'm going to roll back, and having that uncertainty. And as for the portfolio companies, how they think about the user, I think it's always the same thing. If you think about your user and understand what they want, how they interact with your product, and kind of building from that, it's there's a lot of easy lessons and easy advice. It's really to be with your users, build with them, understand how they interact, iterate fast, iterate, and see where traction comes, and that's the best way to build some initial great market fit and solving actual problem for a user. So yeah, definitely there's a clear pattern about listening, working with your end users, and success for sure.
Nice. I'm curious from the audience, how many people have done a swap? How many people have traded crypto in the audience? Here, raise your hand. Have you ever just traded back and forth? Not just I bought crypto, but I traded. Okay, all right, a few traders here. Well, how about a cross-chain swap? Who's done a cross-chain swap? Okay. Hey, most of the people who have done swaps here have done cross-chain swaps. That's awesome.
There were some people who didn't do a swap who did cross-chain swap.
Wait a minute. Go back. Roll the tape. All right. Well, okay. So what about let's see. What about depositing? Say. Okay. What about a cross-chain swap over decentralized infrastructure? Come on. Okay.
From
What-
fiat to crypto.
Yeah.
right. That's right. That's from one chain to another. Yeah. What about deposited on a crypto protocol in order to earn yield? Who has done that? Who has done like made a deposit into a crypto protocol in order to earn yield? Okay, good. About half. How about borrowed over a crypto protocol for whatever insane purpose? A smaller number, but still pretty good. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, look, I don't want you to be shy. If you have any questions, just raise your hand. I'll call on you. Okay, over there on the side. Gentleman that way on the side. He'll come over to you with the mic. Don't forget, speak into the mic, please.
Yeah, for users, we're talking about users of the past, right? How we grew up, how we got involved in crypto, but how do we see the users of the future onboarding? That's what I'm really interested to see your perspectives on. How we abstract away stuff the same way that the vendors or the social media companies of today have abstracted things away for users to make it easier for them to easily onboard and leverage those systems. How do we see that next generation of onboarding looking like?
Yeah, what does user onboarding in the today's sense and also in the Web3 sense look like compared to user onboarding of yore?
Yeah. So, I mean, what we've realized with our launch has been that Squid is actually an onboarding tool in a lot of ways. So a lot of our partners will implement our widget, which is this little component which allows you to swap from any chain, and that allows users from any blockchain to swap into this application. And so we just need to extend that to essentially allowing fiat, and that will be partnerships through fiat on ramps, where you can make it in one flow. And so you can imagine like an onboarding widget where you want to get this product, say it's a lending product, and you can pay using crypto, which is in any of your wallets, or you can select wire transfer or fiat, credit card. So I'm thinking that you can actually onboard directly into the application in a lot of cases. The question that's in my mind still is how a user gets a wallet, because they have to sign up to a relevant wallet, and I think that's not yet solved. Whether we're not going to probably have wallets per application.
Private key management problems like that remain. No doubt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else, or what's the user of today?
Yeah, I think it's important to think about like mass adoption, but like that's like a few years away, and we need to think about like wider adoption and making sure you can like bring in like more users by like improving like some of the on-ramps, improving like the general infrastructure. And so yeah, when I think about mass adoption, it's always about it's mooning, it's mass adoption, everybody's incoming tomorrow, but for what? Like I don't think like all the use cases are clear to have like a billion new users coming today. So it really needs to go like in steps, like having like some tools that are like better for like wider audiences, meaning like better on ramps, the ability to have on-ramps directly when like pull some money like directly into smart contracts, or improving like some of the wallet experience for people to interact with like some use cases that make sense today, like whether it be DeFi or NFTs or digital ownership or whatever. So it's I would think like nothing too far away, and be very pragmatic in the steps to kind of improve the current infrastructure, bring in some more users, and be more pragmatic in that step in that option.
Nice.
I think, at least my perspective on this is there are two kinds of users that you're onboarding. They're coming from two different places. The first are people who just don't have access to mature financial infrastructure in their countries or economies. And so crypto is what allows them to be able to transact with other people, or basically allow the unbanked to earn yield on their assets. And I think those people are going to be onboarded in a different way and maybe use things actually a bit more crypto natively than a lot of the people coming from developed countries, where what they're more interested in is they want to make money and they want to be able to move money easier. Yeah. And so I think you have to solve the UX problem of how do we get over all of the key management issues that crypto currently has to onboard a lot of those users from developed countries. But a lot of those solutions are going to be regulated and KYC'd and maybe not available to people in developing countries who are going to use things a bit more directly through wallets.
The leapfrogging effect has its effect, right,
Yep.
on what the user is like. Well, this has been great conversation. I want to thank all three of you for coming. Everybody, please give a warm round of applause for the panel.
Thank you.